Hi everybody, I'm Kathleen and I'm here to talk about the Footpath Library, and as was mentioned, I'm doing my PhD in the information experiences of homeless, marginally housed and socially excluded people, which sort of might explain some of the interest that I had in working with the Footpath Library. So the Footpath Library, in case you don't know what it is, it's a library service for homeless and marginally housed people. Our vision, as you can see there, is to enrich the quality of life for homeless people, encourage literacy and promote a society that's well informed about homelessness. So I'm the newest member of the Queensland branch management team, and there's 4 of us. There's Bernadette, who's our branch manager, and she's somewhere in sunny Spain at the moment, and Suze King, who's our client manager, and Fiona Crawford, our book resources manager, are here in the audience. We can all answer questions at the end. So how did the Footpath Library come about? Well, the Footpath Library was actually founded in Sydney by a lady called Sarah Garnett in 2003, and it was following the death of a family friend, Benjamin Andrew. So after the death of Benjamin, Sarah began volunteering with a group in the Sydney CBD that served meals to homeless and disadvantaged people. And one night when she was serving food, Sarah noticed a man reading a novel while he was waiting for the food to be served. So she started talking to him about, what was he reading, what was the book about, and the conversation started. And from that, she began to bring him books to read, and more books to read. And so she started off at the Footpath Library by pilfering from her husband's mystery novel collection, which obviously wasn't sustainable during the long term. Her husband probably didn't want to keep on buying that many books, and he probably was getting a little upset. And Sarah also started getting more and more requests from other homeless people that were waiting in line for food, that saying, you brought him a mystery novel, can you grab me a, Maeve Binchy novel, or whatever it might be. So the Footpath Library literally started out of the boot of somebody's car. And it started in response to a need that Sarah saw in the community. How does it operate now? Well, we don't operate out of the boot of cars now. We've got 4 branches across Australia: Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne and Perth. Each branch runs slightly differently in the way we operate, but we're all staffed by volunteers. We all do this on a volunteer basis, but we all run to the same ethos. We all have the same belief that books are really important. So in Sydney, they actually have a van that goes out into the street, a van packed with books, and delivers books on the street to people, as well as delivering to shelters. We're a small operation here in Brisbane, so we just actually deliver books to homeless shelters. We deliver to 12 shelters at the moment. So we basically have a relationship with shelters. The shelters ask us for books. We send out boxes of books, and obviously the books are tailored to the particular shelter, so it might be if it's a women's shelter or a place where women are going to go with children, we put children's books in. And then we pack them accordingly. So we also, that's the main bulk of our work, but we also participate in events like Homeless Connect in Brisbane. So at the last Homeless Connect, I'll just give you the stats of who visited the Footpath Library stand. There were 70 women, 85 men and 20 families, and they distributed 27 boxes of books overall, so it was a lot of books that went out. The books that we get are all donated by companies, by publishers, by companies that sometimes have book drives, so there's a lot of corporate responsibility. I'm sure that's the sort of buzzword that's going around now. And so some companies will do book drives specifically for the Footpath Library, which is great. Some by individuals, and some people are actually really nice. Recently there was a mother and a daughter who had a joint 18th and a 50th birthday. They didn't need any more stuff. Our lives are crammed full of stuff. We've all got houses full of stuff. So instead of having presents, they asked everybody to just bring them some books that they could donate to the Footpath Library. So to go out and buy some brand new books and bring them as their presents, and they donated, which is absolutely lovely. And that's really important that the books were brand new, and that's something that we're really quite particular about, because we want the book to be in good condition. This should be a book that you're going to give to a good friend or your mum, or it's not we need to break the stereotype that just because these people are disadvantaged or living in poverty, they should just be happy with whatever we're going to throw away. It's an old book, it's missing a cover, doesn't matter, they won't care. Actually, that's actually pretty insulting, and we need to make sure that we're treating these people with respect and giving them books that we'd be happy to share with our friends. We also have some collection guidelines, like every other library. Ours are quite, they're different to most libraries. So we don't want things like true crime novels or things that are particularly graphic or upsetting. And also, we don't want, we do distribute magazines, like National Geographics are extremely popular, but we're not going to distribute Vogue Interior or something like that. Like, that would just be insulting. So we do have quite strict collection guidelines. And I'm a librarian, and, unlike most libraries, we don't have any overdue fines. There's no 500 penalty points like we have at QUT. We give you the book. Go away, take it away, have it, do whatever you like with it, pass it on. So it's a bit different. So even though we're a library, we're not actually going to, make you bring the book back to us. So that's how we operate. So why is it important that we're here and that this service is run for these people? Well, I think I'm going to just make a general assumption, but I'm guessing that everybody in this room is a reader and loves books and knows the importance of reading. So, we're all coming from the same place. We all love books and reading. When the Footpath Library was first established, it couldn't get recognition as a tax-deductible charity because we don't provide food or shelter. So the legislation that was set down, in all its wisdom, that covered the definition of charity for homeless services says that you have to provide food or shelter. That's the only two things. Books, what do they matter? We're not necessary. We're not a necessary service, is the way that we were perceived at first. There's been some modifications to make sure that we do fit into that tax-deductible charity, but I think that's a really interesting thing that, books aren't necessary. What do they need books for? And that sort of has come through in a lot of research. There's been some research that's done, and I think there's a general belief across society that homeless and marginally housed people are only worried about things such as food and clothing and shelter. That's it, that's all they're concentrating on. And yeah, obviously those immediate needs are really, really important, but information, including books, really has an important role to play in people's identity formation and their self-esteem. So research has shown that being able to stay connected to the information mainstream, which is popular TV shows, newspapers and books, it can actually help homeless and just socially excluded people feel more connected to society. So they're already marginalised. By giving them access to everything that's in the popular domain, it's inviting them back into the society in a different way. And I know we've talked today about, reading as a way of escape. It's important for us when we're busy and tired and going home to our nice houses and having a cup of tea to escape and, put your feet up with a book. Think how much more important that is if you're homeless. So reading is a really, really crucial means of escapism from their everyday stresses. And it's a pretty stressful life that they're leading, that most of these people are leading. So bringing this idea together about, reading connecting to the mainstream and as an escape from the everyday stresses, there was a study in Scotland, and they spoke to some people in homeless shelters, drop-in centres during the day. It was just a drop-in centre. You could come in and look at newspapers and look at books, and people were saying, this makes me feel like I used to feel when I had a home. So that was how important it was to go into that space and pick up a book and pick up a newspaper and read it. It made me feel like I used to feel when I lived in a house. So it is really important. And so I guess we see it as it's a need, it's not a want. It's not a want for, I just want to read. It's actually a need. So I'm sure you've all heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I didn't want to put up the boring ones. I like this one with Godzilla in the snow and the needs as well, because I don't believe in those Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so Maslow's hierarchy of needs is, the pyramid, and you start at the bottom and you've got physiological, so you've got to have food and all that, and you go into safety, and then once you feel safe, you can worry about social acceptance, and you go personal. And the hierarchy of needs is supposed to be this very linear model where you go up step by step, and until you've covered off the fact that you've got somewhere to sleep, then only then will you worry about your safety, and it goes up. And actually, I just don't think that's true. And there's a great quote from a couple of researchers, Muggleton and Ruthven, and they've challenged this hierarchy of needs, and they say that higher level needs are a fundamental part of being human, and these coexist with more physiological needs at all levels of the social spectrum. So all these needs are part of being human. You can't just separate them out one from the other. They're all intertwined. Okay. So why is the Footpath Library, you know, I've sort of gone through the reasons that it's important, and I think it's really, as well as all the reasons I've said, you know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, all kinds of people love reading. And books, as well as all these things, you know, information, connection to the mainstream, all these things, books are providing us a connection. Talking about books is a commonality. It's a non-threatening conversation to have. There are no hard questions. There's no one that's an authority, unless you bring back an overdue book. But, you know, it's just a leveller. It's just a joyful conversation for people to have. When you are homeless or marginally housed, sometimes it's really, really rare to get those conversations. You're used to having more difficult conversations and more stressful conversations. And you can, you know, when people are talking about books, and, you know, Fiona and Susan both told me they can see people be, you know, they're engaged, they feel valued in the conversation. It's not about their immediate needs or anything is stressful. It's a joyful conversation for them to have. Like the book is a means of escape, the conversation about the book is a bit of an escape as well. So it's all tying into that. So for a long time, we've sort of thought about treating poverty through food, shelter, and all those types of things. But we need to think about other things that we can be doing to help right now. Because I don't think Tony Abbott's going to stump up the money for 500 new units. So let's think about what we can do right now to help these people. And there was a lovely story about a family that was doing it really tough and were accessing the Footpath Library Footpath Library books. And there was a father and daughter, and they weren't in, you know, steady, stable accommodation. And the dad just really needed some access to resources to teach his daughter to read, to do all these things. And she was quite young, and this little girl ended up getting a scholarship to a school and doing things like that, because that's somewhere that we can help now. So it's very important. So I guess this is my final slide. Help. If we've got a really, really varied client base. There are some adults with really low literacy. You know, we've had all those discussions around low literacy today. But that doesn't mean that they should be denied books or access to types of books. So National Geographic magazines are immensely popular among our client base because it's something that you can read and escape into, but you don't necessarily need a really high literacy level. And it's still really engaging, and you don't want to give a grown man a kid's book. You know, it's not very nice. So we have a really diverse client base. As I said, we've got low literacy, we've got really high literacy, and we're always looking for new ways to get books. So if you can help, then please come and talk to one of us afterwards. Thank you.